The glass was already at Adrian's lips when Elena's trembling hand shot out, gripping his wrist. "Don't say a word," she hissed, eyes wide with terror. "Your wife is trying to kill you." The entire banquet hall buzzed around them, laughter, champagne, celebration, while Adrian Cole's own wife stood 20 feet away, watching with cold eyes that burned like fire. She had just slipped something deadly into his drink, and only the trembling maid had seen it. But saving a billionaire's life? That was about to make Elena the next target. Because Isabella wasn't just trying to kill her husband. She was stealing his entire empire. And now the only witness was a poor girl with everything to lose. The grand chandelier glistened above the banquet hall, casting its golden glow over the room where laughter and music floated in the air. The billionaire CEO, Adrian Cole, stood tall in his perfectly tailored suit, smiling politely as guests toasted to his success. But just a few feet away, someone else's hands trembled, not with excitement, but with fear. Elena, the maid in her crisp uniform, carried a tray of champagne glasses, her eyes darting nervously to the corner of the room. There, she had just seen something that froze her heart. Adrian's wife, Isabella, stood by the bar, slipping a small vial into one of the glasses meant for him. Her face wore a smile for the crowd, but her eyes burned with something dark. Elena's breath caught. Her chest tightened as she realized what was happening. She couldn't scream. She couldn't shout. No one would believe a maid over the elegant, powerful wife of a billionaire. The entire room would turn against her. Her pulse raced as she moved quickly, weaving through the crowd. Adrian reached for the poisoned glass, oblivious to the trap waiting at his fingertips. Just as he lifted it, Elena's hand shot out, gripping his wrist firmly. Adrian looked at her in confusion, but before he could speak, her trembling hand covered his mouth. "Don't say a word," she whispered urgently, her voice cracking with terror. "Your life is in danger." The room spun with laughter and music around them, but in that single silent moment, nothing else existed. Just a poor maid with everything to lose, and a billionaire CEO whose life now rested in her hands. Thank you for sticking around with me, my wonderful story family. If you're already hooked in for today's story and ready to enjoy it, click the subscribe button and let me know in the comments where you're watching from, because tomorrow I will be giving you another story just as interesting as this one. And you don't want to miss it. Now let us begin. Long before the glittering chandeliers and the clinking glasses of champagne, Elena's life had been far simpler and far harsher. She grew up in a cramped, dimly lit apartment with peeling walls and a roof that leaked every time the rain fell. Her mother worked herself sick at a laundry shop, and her father had left when she was barely 5. Elena carried the weight of responsibility early on, cleaning houses, running errands, and sacrificing her own dreams of school so her younger brother could at least hold on to his. By the time she turned 22, Elena had learned one thing well: survival often demanded silence. Speaking out against cruelty or injustice rarely worked for the poor. But working quietly, enduring, and waiting for the right moment, that kept you alive. It was that silence that had led her here, working as a maid in the grand Cole mansion. The mansion was a world of marble floors, spiraling staircases, and priceless art. Every morning, Elena polished silverware worth more than her entire year's salary. She kept her head down, bowed politely, and obeyed every order barked at her by Isabella, the billionaire's wife. Adrian Cole, the CEO, was a different story. Though he was a man of wealth and power, he carried himself with quiet dignity. Elena rarely spoke to him directly, but she had seen enough: the way he asked staff about their families, the way he tipped extra when someone helped him late at night. He was not perfect, but he was human. And in Elena's heart, though she never admitted it aloud, there was a strange warmth whenever she saw him. A warmth she buried deep, because it was not her place. But Isabella was the opposite. She was as cruel as she was beautiful. Staff whispered about her temper, the way she fired maids without notice, the way she used her husband's fortune for her own pleasures. To outsiders, she was the picture of grace, but within the mansion walls, her smile could cut deeper than a knife. Elena had endured Isabella's scorn countless times. The insults, the humiliations, the long hours. She took it all in silence. But that night at the banquet, when she saw Isabella slip poison into Adrian's glass, Elena's silence broke. Her normal world had shattered. She could no longer just endure. If she didn't act, Adrian would die, and she would live forever knowing she had watched silently. Her entire life of staying quiet had prepared her for this single moment of courage. And that was how a poor maid, unseen and unheard, stepped into a deadly game that could either destroy her or save a billionaire's life. The mansion was unusually quiet that night. The guests had left, the laughter had died down, and only the soft ticking of the antique grandfather clock in the hallway could be heard. Elena had finished her chores and was preparing to head to her small quarters when she noticed something strange. A faint light flickered under the study door. Adrian never stayed up this late in the study, not after a long evening of business meetings. Something felt off. Elena hesitated. She wasn't supposed to wander outside her assigned areas, but her instincts told her to take a closer look. Moving silently, she tiptoed toward the door. The muffled sound of voices seeped through the wood. One voice was Adrian's, firm but weary. The other was unmistakably Cassandra's. "You don't have to know where I go, Adrian," Cassandra hissed. "It's none of your business anymore." "None of my business." Adrian's voice carried disbelief and pain. "You're my wife. Where have you been disappearing to every night?" Elena's heart pounded. She shouldn't be hearing this. She knew it. Yet her feet refused to move away. Then came Cassandra's cold laugh. "Maybe if you weren't so busy with your empire, you'd have noticed what's right in front of you." The sharp crash of glass shattering followed. Elena gasped quietly and stepped back, but the sound drew Cassandra's attention. The door flung open, and there she stood, Cassandra, her beauty darkened by a venomous glare. "What are you doing here?" she snapped, her voice low and dangerous. Elena's lips trembled. "I was just passing, ma'am. Forgive me, Spying, weren't you?" Cassandra accused, stepping closer. Her eyes narrowed. "You heard everything." Before Elena could answer, Adrian appeared behind Cassandra. His gaze shifted from his wife to Elena, and for a brief second, she saw something she'd never seen in him before: fear. "Enough, Cassandra," Adrian said sternly, placing himself between his wife and the trembling maid. "Go to your quarters, Elena." Elena hurried off, but her chest felt tight. She had stumbled into a battlefield she was never meant to enter. That night, Elena couldn't sleep. Cassandra's glare haunted her, and Adrian's shaken expression lingered in her mind. Something terrible was brewing, and she knew Cassandra wouldn't let her presence slide. The next morning, her fears were confirmed. As Elena was scrubbing the marble floor of the hallway, she overheard two security men whispering. "They say Madam hired someone." "Hired for what?" "Don't know exactly. But she's been making calls in secret. The boss doesn't know yet." Elena froze. Hired someone? For what? Her heart sank. Cassandra wasn't just angry, she was plotting. By evening, the unease turned into raw terror. On her way home, walking through the dimly lit back streets, Elena noticed footsteps behind her. At first, she brushed it off, probably another maid or late-night pedestrian. But the steps quickened, and when she turned sharply down a familiar alley, they followed. Her chest tightened. She wasn't imagining it. Someone was tailing her. The shadow of two large men grew longer behind her. Panic gripped her. She bolted, clutching her bag, but they gave chase, their heavy boots pounding the pavement like a drum of doom. "Where you running to, little maid?" one of them mocked. Another grabbed at her arm, but she twisted free, tears streaming down her face. "Please, leave me alone." The taller of the two sneered, his grip tightening around her wrist. "Cassandra sends her regards." Elena's knees nearly buckled. Cassandra. It was true. She had hired them. She screamed, but the alley was too quiet. No one would hear her. Her mind raced, searching for escape, when suddenly, a pair of headlights flooded the alley. Tires screeched. A sleek black car blocked the path, and the doors flung open. Let her go. It was Adrian. In seconds, his bodyguards rushed the men, fists and shouts colliding in a brutal scuffle. Elena fell to the ground, shaking, as Adrian rushed to her side. He pulled her into his arms, shielding her from the chaos. "Are you hurt?" he asked, his voice thick with fury and fear. Elena shook her head, though tears wouldn't stop streaming down her cheeks. "They said Cassandra sent them." Adrian's face hardened. Rage simmered in his eyes. "She's gone too far." That was the night everything changed. The fragile line between servant and master broke, replaced by a bond forged in danger, trust, and fear. And for the first time, Adrian realized something he hadn't before. Elena wasn't just a maid. She was the only person he could truly trust. What would you do if you were in Elena's shoes? Would you stay silent to protect your life, or risk everything to expose Cassandra's dark schemes? Drop your thoughts in the comments below. I'd love to know what you think. The following morning, the mansion was anything but calm. The usually elegant halls felt like a silent war zone. Adrian had summoned his legal team, his private investigators, and his most trusted security men. His voice carried like a storm, sharp and commanding. But Cassandra? She sat at the breakfast table, dressed in silk, sipping her coffee as though nothing had happened. "You're awfully dramatic, Adrian," she said casually when he confronted her. "Two men chasing a maid? And suddenly it's my fault." Adrian's jaw tightened. "Don't play games with me, Cassandra. Elena could have been killed last night. She heard them say your name." Cassandra set her cup down and smirked. A frightened maid hears what she wants. "Honestly, Adrian, maybe you're the one who's lost touch with reality." The exchange sent chills down Elena's spine as she lingered by the corner, pretending to dust while listening. Cassandra was calm, too calm. It was the kind of calm that came from knowing something no one else did. Later that day, Adrian pulled Elena aside. His usually composed face was shadowed with concern. "From now on, you don't walk alone. My driver will take you wherever you need to go. Do you understand?" Elena lowered her gaze. "Yes, sir. But what if Cassandra?" Adrian interrupted, his tone protective. "Don't worry about Cassandra. Let me deal with her. You've already risked enough by just being near me." Those words echoed in her heart long after he walked away. Risked enough by just being near him. But Adrian wasn't the only one burdened with suspicion. That night, as Elena was cleaning the library, she stumbled across something unusual. A phone, Cassandra's phone, carelessly left on the desk. Normally, Elena would never dare touch it. But something about the glowing screen pulled her closer. She saw a series of messages from an unknown number. "It's done. She won't be a problem for long. Make sure no one traces this back. Payment confirmed." Elena's breath caught. Her hands shook. She wanted to show Adrian right away, but before she could think, Cassandra's voice sliced through the room. "Looking for something?" Elena spun around, nearly dropping the phone. Cassandra stood in the doorway, eyes sharp, lips curved in a dangerous smile. Elena stammered, "And no, ma'am. I was just—" Cassandra sauntered forward, her heels clicking against the polished wood floor. She retrieved the phone, never breaking eye contact. "Careful, Elena. Curiosity can be deadly." The way she whispered deadly made Elena's skin crawl. That night, Elena lay awake in her small room, heart pounding. Cassandra knew she had seen the messages. She had walked right into her trap. But what terrified Elena more was the realization that Cassandra wasn't stopping. She was escalating. And yet, in the middle of her fear, another thought lingered. Adrian. The way he looked at her now wasn't the same as before. There was something in his eyes, a mixture of trust, guilt, and something softer. Something that scared her even more than Cassandra. For the first time, Elena asked herself a question she had no answer to. Was she falling for the man she had sworn to only serve? If you discovered secret messages proving someone was plotting against you, but the person was powerful and dangerous like Cassandra, would you expose the truth, or keep quiet to survive? Share your answer in the comments. I'm curious what you'd do. Days passed, but Elena couldn't shake Cassandra's chilling words. The mansion felt like a cage now, each hallway filled with whispers, each shadow hiding a threat. Adrian had grown more protective, keeping Elena close, ensuring she was never left alone, but even his presence couldn't erase her dread. One evening, Adrian invited Elena into his private office. The air was heavy with silence, broken only by the crackle of the fireplace. "Elena," he began, his voice softer than she'd ever heard it, "you risked your life when you stayed to protect me that night. I need you to know, you're not just a maid in this house anymore. You're someone I trust." Her breath caught. His eyes lingered on hers longer than they should have, and she felt her chest tighten. But before either could say more, the office phone rang. Adrian answered, listening intently. His face darkened. When he hung up, he clenched his jaw. There's been a financial breach. Millions diverted into offshore accounts. And the trail, he paused, his voice laced with disbelief, leads back to Cassandra. Elena's blood ran cold. Cassandra wasn't just dangerous. She was stealing everything Adrian had built. But that wasn't the worst part. Later that night, while Elena was clearing out the study, she noticed a file folder partially hidden behind Cassandra's expensive purse. Curiosity tugged at her, and against her better judgment, she peeked inside. Her hands shook as she flipped through the papers, bank statements, false identities, and then photos. Photos of Adrian. And in every single one, Cassandra wasn't alone. There was another man. A tall, cold-eyed stranger. Scrawled across the top of the last document were the words, "Transfer complete. Next phase, Adrian's disappearance." Elena's heart nearly stopped. Cassandra wasn't just planning to ruin Adrian financially, she was planning to end him. Her hands trembled as she tried to put the folder back, but just then, a shadow loomed over her. "What are you doing, Elena?" It was Cassandra. The folder slipped from Elena's hands and scattered across the floor. Cassandra's face twisted into fury, but before she could lash out, Adrian entered. His gaze swept from Elena to the damning papers at their feet. His face drained of color. "Cassandra," Adrian said, his voice shaking with rage, "what have you done?" Cassandra didn't deny it. Instead, she smirked. "What I should have done a long time ago. You think you're untouchable, Adrian? You built your empire, ignored me, and treated me like a trophy. Well, I'm done being in your shadow. Soon everything you own, everything you are, will belong to me." The room fell into stunned silence. And then the final blow. Cassandra's eyes slid to Elena. "And you, little maid, you think you've saved him? You've only signed your own death warrant. What would you do if you uncovered that someone inside your own home, someone you trusted, was plotting to destroy you? Would you confront them like Adrian, or play along until you had the upper hand? Drop your thoughts below. The empire Adrian had built brick by brick was collapsing like sand in a storm. Cassandra had played her cards with surgical precision. Within 3 days, half of Adrian's assets were frozen under the guise of ongoing investigation. His face, once admired on business magazines and TV interviews, now dominated tabloids with headlines dripping in scandal. At a press conference Cassandra staged with crocodile tears shimmering in her eyes, she told the world, "I loved my husband. I tried to endure. But behind those walls, I was living in fear. I only stayed silent for so long because I didn't want the world to know who he truly was." The cameras flashed. Reporters scribbled. And the public, hungry for drama, believed her. Adrian, watching the broadcast from his private study, hurled a glass against the wall. It shattered, much like his life had. "She's not just destroying me," he whispered hoarsely to Elena, who stood frozen in the doorway. "She's rewriting who I am." That night, the mansion no longer felt like his. Cassandra had hired new staff loyal to her, their eyes cold and watchful. Adrian's most trusted security guards had been forced out. Even the board members, men he had mentored for years, turned their backs on him. Elena clung to what little hope she had, staying by Adrian's side even as the walls closed in. But Cassandra hadn't forgotten about her. One evening, after finishing chores, Elena walked into her small quarters only to find everything overturned. Her bed stripped bare, her belongings scattered, her Bible ripped in half on the floor. And on her pillow lay a single red rose, its stem sharpened like a blade. Her knees weakened. She understood the message clearly. Cassandra wasn't just trying to scare her anymore, she was promising her end. Later that night, Elena tried to tell Adrian, but she found him slumped over his desk, face buried in his arms, an untouched bottle of whiskey beside him. The man who had once commanded boardrooms, negotiated billion-dollar deals, and exuded unshakable authority, was broken. When he finally raised his head, his eyes were bloodshot. "Elena," he croaked, "I don't know how to fight her anymore. She owns the courts, the press, the police. Even my friends, they've left me. What's left to fight for?" Elena's throat tightened, tears threatening to spill. "For the truth," she whispered, kneeling beside him. "For yourself. For the man you really are. And if that's not enough," she placed her trembling hand over his, "fight for me. Because I believe in you, even when you don't." Her words pierced through his despair, but only for a flicker. He looked at her, eyes softening with something unspoken, but before he could respond, a loud crash echoed from outside. Adrian's remaining guards rushed in, breathless. "Sir." They set fire to one of the cars in the driveway. It was deliberate. Elena's blood turned to ice. Cassandra wasn't satisfied with character assassination. She was escalating into open violence. Adrian pressed a hand against his forehead, the weight of it all crashing down. He had lost his company, his reputation, and now his home was turning into a war zone. And the woman standing across the fire line, the woman he had once called his wife, was winning. That night, as the flames flickered outside and smoke drifted into the sky, Adrian whispered to himself, almost as if confessing to the darkness, "Maybe Cassandra was right. Maybe everything I built is already gone." And in her room, Elena sat clutching the torn pieces of her Bible, tears soaking the pages. She wanted to believe her words to Adrian. She wanted to believe hope still existed. But with Cassandra's shadow stretching darker every day, even her faith trembled. This was the lowest point. The moment when light seemed crushed, when love seemed impossible, and when the enemy's victory felt final. If you were Adrian, betrayed by the person you trusted most, abandoned by the world, and left with nothing, would you still fight back or accept defeat? Share your heart in the comments. The mansion was silent after the chaos of the fire, its corridors heavy with smoke and tension. Adrian hadn't spoken much since that night, his once commanding voice now reduced to whispers of doubt. Elena could see he was slipping further into the darkness Cassandra had built around him. But Elena refused to let him drown. She sat across from him in the study, her gaze steady. "Adrian," she said firmly, her voice no longer trembling, "do you know why Cassandra is fighting so hard? Why she's willing to burn cars, bribe courts, and destroy you?" Adrian lifted his eyes, dull and tired. "Because she hates me." "No," Elena shook her head. "Because she's terrified of you. She knows the man you really are. And deep down, she knows the truth always comes out. That's why she's desperate. People only fight this dirty when they're afraid of losing." The words sank in. For the first time in weeks, something flickered behind Adrian's tired eyes. Not despair, but thought. Elena leaned forward, her hands clasped. You've spent your life building empires, Adrian. But now it's time to fight for yourself. For your name. For your soul. And you don't have to do it alone. She placed her hand gently over his. You have me. Adrian looked at her, really looked at her, as though seeing her not just as the maid who once moved quietly through the halls, but as the woman who had stood against Cassandra's storm, who refused to run when everyone else had. In that silence, a decision formed. He straightened, pushing aside the whiskey glass. His jaw tightened with the resolve he thought he'd lost. You're right, he said slowly, voice gathering strength. If Cassandra wants a war, I'll give her one. But not her way. Not with lies. I'll fight her with the one thing she can't destroy, the truth. Elena's chest swelled with relief, tears pricking her eyes, not of sadness but of hope. The next day, Adrian made his first bold move. Instead of hiding from the media, he invited them. He appeared before the cameras, not in a tailored suit, but in a simple shirt, his expression raw. I've been accused of things I did not do, he said, voice steady. And while the world may choose to believe lies, I will not run. The truth has nothing to fear. And soon the truth will be known. Behind the scenes, Elena had already begun gathering threads, conversations she'd overheard, documents Cassandra thought she had destroyed, even recordings she'd managed to save from Adrian's office. Piece by piece, they started to build something Cassandra couldn't anticipate, a case against her. For the first time in weeks, Adrian and Elena worked side by side, not just as employer and maid, but as allies. He shared his business knowledge, and she brought her fierce intuition. Together, they crafted a strategy that could expose Cassandra's schemes and reclaim Adrian's life. That night, as they sat reviewing evidence, Elena glanced at Adrian, his face illuminated by the lamplight. He looked different now, worn, yes, but alive again. Stronger. You know, she said softly, this is the first time I've seen you smile in weeks. Adrian chuckled, the sound low but genuine. That's because, for the first time, I believe we might actually win. It wasn't victory yet. Cassandra still held power, influence, and dangerous connections. But for the first time since the nightmare began, Adrian and Elena had something she couldn't control: hope, truth, and unity. And in the darkest of wars, that was the deadliest weapon of all. When life pushes you to your breaking point, do you believe hope can be rebuilt with even the smallest spark, or is giving up sometimes the only option? I'd love to hear your thoughts in the comments. Cassandra had grown comfortable in her throne of lies. For weeks, she'd fed the media, bought judges, and silenced witnesses. To her, Adrian was finished, just another man broken by her flawless schemes. But Cassandra had underestimated the one thing money couldn't buy: courage wrapped in loyalty. Adrian and Elena spent sleepless nights in the study, evidence scattered across the mahogany table. Elena leaned over her notes, voice sharp with determination. This recording of her threatening the contractors, it's not enough to convict her in court, but it's enough to raise suspicion. If we leak it, the public will start questioning everything she's said. Adrian nodded. And when people begin to doubt, Cassandra's empire begins to crumble. With a calculated risk, Adrian released the first piece of evidence. A shaky audio clip hit the press, one where Cassandra's voice dripped with venom. Make it look like an accident. If Adrian walks away alive, I'll make sure you never do business in this city again. The media exploded. Headlines blared. Cassandra under fire, billionaire's wife caught on tape. Murder plot or manipulation. Suddenly, the narrative shifted. Adrian was no longer the disgraced CEO. He was the man standing against a storm of corruption. Cassandra fumed. She smashed a wine glass against the marble floor of her penthouse, her scream echoing. That Maid. I told you to get rid of her. Her men bowed their heads, too afraid to speak. Elena, however, was unshaken. If anything, the fire in Cassandra's eyes only fueled her further. That night, Adrian gathered his closest allies, board members who had remained silent, afraid of Cassandra's grip. He stood tall before them, Elena by his side. "I've made mistakes," he admitted. "But silence will not be one of them. Cassandra thrives on fear, and she has used it to control us. No more. If you stand with me now, you're not just fighting for me, you're fighting for every person who's been silenced by her lies." The room was silent. Then one by one, hands rose. They were with him. Elena's heart swelled. For the first time, Adrian wasn't just defending himself, he was inspiring others to fight. But Cassandra wasn't retreating. She struck back with venom. The next morning, a forged article surfaced online. Elena, the gold digger maid, secret affair with billionaire revealed. Photoshopped images painted Elena as the schemer who had manipulated Adrian all along. The internet went wild, hashtags trending within hours. Elena stared at the headlines, her hands trembling. "She's destroying me to get to you." Adrian reached across the table, gripping her hands tightly. "No. She's destroying herself. Lies don't last forever. And this," he tapped the newspaper, "is proof she's running out of weapons." For every move Cassandra made, Adrian and Elena countered with truth. The public began to see the cracks in Cassandra's story. She was no longer the perfect socialite. She was the woman whose empire of lies was collapsing under its own weight. But Cassandra wasn't finished. She was too powerful, too dangerous to fall easily. If Adrian and Elena wanted to bring her down completely, they would need one final undeniable piece of evidence. And Cassandra, she was preparing her most ruthless strike yet. The war had truly begun. When lies are exposed, do you think truth alone is enough to bring justice, or does power always find a way to twist the story? Let me know your thoughts below. The rain outside Adrian's mansion seemed to echo the chaos inside. Cassandra's final mask had shattered, her desperate screams carried away as security dragged her out. The Queen of Lies was finished. Adrian stood frozen for a moment, chest rising and falling with heavy breaths. He turned to Elena, her face pale, her eyes trembling but brave. She hadn't run, hadn't cowered, not even when Cassandra's madness turned deadly. "Elena," his voice cracked, almost a whisper. "You stood by me when I had nothing but enemies." Elena shook her head gently, her voice soft but firm. "No, Adrian. You were never alone. You just forgot what it felt like to be believed in." Those words sank deep into him, deeper than any courtroom victory or business deal ever had. And for the first time in years, Adrian's face softened, not the mask of a billionaire, not the armor of a man at war, but the face of someone rediscovering his humanity. Months passed. Cassandra's name became a stain in society's memory. The newspapers wrote of her downfall as a lesson. Greed builds empires, but lies destroy them. Adrian didn't celebrate her ruin. He rebuilt quietly, choosing transparency, loyalty, and honor as the new foundation of his empire. For the first time in his life, his boardroom echoed with genuine trust, not fear. And Elena? She no longer wore the uniform of a maid. She was beside him at every step, not as a servant, but as a partner. Her wisdom, her courage, her unwavering honesty had become his compass. One evening, as the city lights shimmered below them from the balcony of Adrian's new penthouse, he slipped a small velvet box into her hand. "Elena," he said softly, his voice almost trembling, "I used to think my wealth was my greatest treasure. But losing it all showed me something I never expected. You are the only treasure I need." Tears glistened in Elena's eyes as she opened the box to see a delicate ring sparkling in the moonlight. "I don't want a maid by my side. I don't want a savior by my side. I want you, Elena. As my equal. As my wife." Elena covered her mouth, overcome by emotion. For a girl who once scrubbed floors, who once walked home under shadows of fear, standing here now felt like a dream she never dared to dream. "Yes, Adrian, she whispered through her tears. 1,000 times, yes. The city roared below with life, but on that balcony, it was just the two of them. Two souls who had walked through betrayal, danger, and lies, only to find that love was the one truth that could never be destroyed. As they embraced, the future stretched wide before them, no longer clouded with shadows, but bright and full of promise. What do you think, my story family? Was it fate that brought Elena into Adrian's life at the exact moment he needed her most? Or was it destiny showing us that love and truth always find their way, even in the darkest times? Share your thoughts in the comments. I'd love to hear them. Thank you for watching this story to the end. Like, subscribe, and share. If you enjoyed this story, you will surely love the next one. It's even crazier and more intriguing than you can imagine. So do check it out. Click on the image showing on your screen right now to watch the next one.